Oh, woe is me.
I am stranded. Please, oh magic phone, give me something to do. You know, I've never actually followed a request or stolen an idea this blatantly, but as I say that, I do talk about this all the time, don't I? So, I might as well, because I grew up with fighting games, not playing them in arcades or against friends screaming at the TV, but alone, or taking turns with friends screaming at the TV trying to beat this old slut fuck Heihachi in Tekken 1. And yet we never did. What we did do though was getting good, learning all of the moves, button timings, and combo rhythms just by playing the games over and over, unlocking all of the characters. And yeah, sure, the mind games and whatnot were lost on the AI, but it sure as shit was a good way to learn how to game without being forced into the deep end. Plus, to those of the short attention span variety, it ain't easy to stomach the repetition of general practice either, so having things like unlockables, strands of story, cool cutscenes, and other fancy trinkets to entice you to keep on playing are quite a necessity if you ask me. But sometimes developers would ditch the whole clever learning through play thing by adding silly shit, as was the case with Tekken 3 and its force and ball modes. The latter being beach volleyball that was as much fun as it was awkward due to the stiff and hard physics of the ball and the fact that shit would be quite hard to hit, and the former being a straight up full-on 2D beat 'em up with a variety of dudes, stages, and bosses, and both modes would also have an unlockable guide to guide their own, to the shared pleasures and dismays of many. See, navigating your way through a stage with controls that were meant for a mostly 2D plane with locked-on lanes drawn between you and your opponent made Force Mode much harder than it probably ever had to be. Because in Tekken games you block by holding back. Only, which way is back when there's so many guys to snap onto? It sucked, but in a fun way. That I spent a lot more time on than I'd ever be willing to admit. And so they kept bringing it back as well, expanding upon it, changing it in ways that simultaneously made it better and worse. Not gonna bring all of that up here though. If you want a rundown of the Tekken series and its modes with commentary by someone who don't know dick shit about fighting games, watch my retrospective. As in terms of single-player fight man bullshit, there's loads of far more interesting, strange, and fleshed out examples under the sun. Dream Factory was a studio led and founded by Seiichi Ishii, aka the dude who spearheaded the development of the original Virtua Fighter as well as the freakishly similar Tekken. I guess he wasn't happy working for these big, overpowering studios, and so he formed his own studio, partnering up with an equally big, overpowering studio, Squaresoft. With the only key difference being that they would have money ad infinitum and weren't afraid of taking risks, thus giving him one whole Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball fame to work with, and spawning Tobal #1. It's a fighting game that could be played competitively. Not saying that you should. It's kinda slow and its weird physics-heavy wrestling-like mechanics and combos are odd, nor was its full 3D-ness all that welcome at the time either, but it seemed to be balanced mostly, and some people have been known to actually play this legit, so I'm sure it's fine. Which is what I'll say in advance for the other Dream Factory titles as well. They made a sequel which is much, much more of the same. I even own it, though weird bupkis Japanese resolutions keep my telly from displaying it, which is also why the footage of the following two games will have interlacing going on. I don't know why this. Tekken 3 has it too, on PS3, but not on PS2. But on PS2 I can't play the games because all I see is this. Help me. Resolutions and old TVs are scary. And Ehrgeiz leans in heavier on the 3D aspects, adding ranged shit and other weapons-based fighting stuff, also Final Fantasy VII. But at their core, they're all pretty similar, nor is it what I would like to be focusing on here. Thing being is that they worked for Square, a company known for big, single-player story-based efforts, mainly within the RPG genre. So I take it that they felt pressure to at least include something to that effect to make shit fit in. Yeah, so the movement is fucked. Left and right arrows make you strafe, only your strafe has an arc to it, thus making you also move in an oval-shaped curve. And because fighting game, up and down only makes you backstep and front step. To run, one has to double tap, of course, which would have been kinda fine if it weren't for the fact that the run in Tobal functions more like a dash that keeps on going without further input and has one hell of a slowdown to it too. Basic navigation is therefore bupkis. Though luckily enough, the quest mode takes place solely within a maze with tight corners and corridors, lots of doom pits and traps, so it's not like this is a huge scathing cunt of an issue at all. Nope. To sorta make up for this, I guess, you can insta-stop running and move normally-ish by holding down the block button, R1, but let's be real. Needing to hold down a button just to be able to move normally isn't a great place to start. Especially because R1 is also kinda like the general RPG button. Wanna pick things up, or put them down, or interact with anything? Well, R1 and face button got you. Except if you also wanna move while doing any of that. Anyway, it's a dungeon crawler. You got maze, locked doors, many floors, items, collectibles, potions, Indiana Joneses, and enemies like Big Rat or Red Frog what you need to wave your ass on through by still using the regular fighting as seen in the main game, thank fuck. Additionally, it has some RPG elements in that certain potions can raise max HP, strength or defense permanently, allowing you to go back and replay certain floors from the Hub of Silence. And you can even use your blue points to buy shit from the stores that are just pink floor tiles, which, that's kind of the main issue, really. It just doesn't have anything going for it. The entire thing's soundscape is either complete silence or just one single jungle drum and bass loop that doesn't fit for shit, and visually, it's just brick walls. There's no atmosphere, no story, no character, no emotion. It's nothing but the driest, most unimaginative vision of what a dungeon crawler be. Though, a neat tribute to that Windows 98 screensaver, that's for sure. Now, of course, Tobal sold like crusty penis, thus warranting a sequel exclusive to Japanese shores. For real, they just kinda left it out there like a dead jellyfish. But it did improve on the RPG mode. The walls, for one, are actually textured now, with words being said to pre-rendered backgrounds. There's a wee town thingy with terrible camera angles and NPCs. There's more than one song, not to mention that the OST for this mode uses the PS1 sound chip, thus sounding FF7 as fuck. And you get like all of this RPG shit with menus and equipable gems and inventories and stuff. Still mostly just a maze though. And the controls are just as awful too, but hey, at least it has character now. Wish I could actually play it for myself though. But I guess we should count ourselves as lucky seeing that Dream Factory did the same shit for Ehrgeiz, i.e. Tobal 3, but with more added fantasy, fleshing out the concepts even more. With better town, better RPG, better music, slightly more a pretense of a story with 2 whole original characters, some voice acting, and gameplay that's actually its own fucking thing for once. Taking a few steps back first, it is also worth pointing out that Ehrgeiz in general does a lot to provide a fun single-player package. The arcade mode, for instance, has the unlocks and FMVs of Tekken fame, but also stage transitions with win conditions that'll decide which ones you'll get. Much like how this adds to platformers, it actually does a lot to make shit feel like a proper adventure. Also, beach mode. Fuck beach mode. The real money is over at the RPG in any case. The plot of which is mega bupkis. Girl and guy over here are archaeologists, you see, fucking their way into an ancient temple. However, once they get in, the white light lulls them to sleep and suddenly, whoa, they're in this modern day hotel in this medieval ass town. The dungeons have mahogany flooring, there's a blacksmithy, an armor shop, a fortune teller, and a Japanese-style Italian restaurant straight out of Tokyo. The hotel clerk gives you a sword and shield as well, after which all semblance of plot gets dropped. Girl will just stand there in the hotel room waiting to serve as your one whole continue, being that you only have 2 lives essentially, and so you just go off into the dungeon, braving its many floors, doors, and copy-pasted corridors. Much like Tobal 2, you pick up loads of gunk like equipment, and in this case even some materia, allowing you to magic at them, though most of the game is still just you fighting guys, which actually works now. Sure, you might do the same 3-hit combo for the entire fucking thing, but much like Zelda Souls, it's the variety in weapons, all boasting their own feel and weight, that makes shit work. Missing, sadly, is the enemy negotiation of either you won't be parrying or dodging or shielding much, but I guess for what it is still quite fun to just mindlessly hack away just because of how beefy the combat is. It has that addictive, explorative nature that a good dungeon crawler would have, in that rooms is tiny, walking speeds are fast, and there's no loading screens or awkward controls bogging it down. You're just moving your way on through, clearing these mysterious mazes, ransacking the whole thing as you go, finding items at every step that could be used for questage back at town, like finding a recipe book for the very originally named sommelier. It's never actually great, nor have I ever finished it, as dying means losing all of your shit on the spot and fuck doing a corpse run with fuck bupkis to fend off the foes, but still, they honestly did a pretty great job forcefully tacking this on against their will. Square, being the harsh mistresses that they are, also forced them to make The Bouncer, a game that I can't help but kinda like, but will also admit is a bit of a piece of shit. And so, Seiichi and his gang promptly left, once again sick of these big, overpowering studios, seeking to find salvation elsewhere. Many tales of woe have been told about the big MS's disregard for the Japanese. Sure, they want the Xbox to gain a solid foothold there, but fuck actually spending the money, time, and effort to be able to do that. For real, if more recent stories like D4's tragic fate or the crushingly messy development of Recore and Microsoft's unwillingness to market either aren't enough to convince you to never partner up with Microsoft, you Japanese developers watching this, then you might want to take a look at Kakuto Chojin, a game that was simply meant to be a tech demo before Bill Gates just went, yeah, make a full game, make it now, shitting it out in a state that's best described as man, these animations, stages, and character designs do not look finished. Nor do they really look all that good in concept either, but like, tech demo, man. Which is sad, as after this, Dream Factory was only able to flounder around for a few more years, squeezing out one original title, doing only licensed work afterwards, and then it just kind of faded away, really. From what I can tell, they aren't bankrupt, but they haven't really released anything in about a full decade either, aside from one lone mobile port of Xevious, so yeah. Dream Factory, may ye rest in potential. For the past 2.5 years, I've been on this valiant quest to both play and review the weirdest and obscurest fighting games, and not just to make fun of them. You see, I value creativity, and within a genre that's so set in its strict competitive ways, it can be quite hard to find, though it would be exactly what I'd end up finding. Games that do dick all regarding balanced, well thought out competitive play, but do a lot in terms of offering fun, strange, and above all interesting playstyles. Shit like Destrega, Evil Zone, Sonic the Fighters, and Shaolin. Titles that actually seem to seek to reinvent the genre in their own weird little ways. Destrega, for example, being mostly range-based, pairing buttons with spells allowing you to combine them and increase and decrease intensities depending on relative distance and how you button. Evil Zone being what I'm going to dub a cutscene fighter, where instead of moves or quick one-off kicks, you engage through lavishly animated sequences based on directional button combos. Sonic the Fighters tried to be more of a baby fighter, not reinventing shit, but simply boiling the formula down to a level where zero skill is required to play, allowing for maximum mash. And lastly, Shaolin, taking the simi road of actually in-depthly trying to recreate real real-life fighting styles as realistically as possible, and also allowing for all-out dojo dude bangs. Now, my journey here is far from over, but what all of these games, except Sonic's, have in common is that they offer really fleshed out single-player modes, with big cutscenes, real stories, RPG elements, and exploration. I have individual reviews up for all of these, but it's at least worth bringing up here given how unique and potentially influential their individual approaches are. The Strega, for instance, predates what most modern fighters do story-wise, doing that thing where you get a solid 15 minutes of cutscenes and then you fight one guy and then 15 minutes of cutscenes again, and whoa, hey, before you know it, you're basically watching a feature-length film, only it's also PS1 cutscenes and sometimes you fight one guy. And Evil Zone does something similar, only on a per-character campaign basis, straight up giving each character its own presentation style parodying a genre of anime. You got Sentai with the posturing, Colonel Campbell and the dramatic mask breakages, creepy edgy schoolgirl with the psychotic hair swoops, and there's even this insecurely heroic do-gooder boy man and guts. Shit is also actually really cool. Shaolin, though, on the other hand, pulls a Dream Factory only on a much bigger scale, actually attempting to do more of a proper big RPG thing over a simple single Dungo child, boasting boats, towns, sailors, shops, NPCs with dialogues, and tank controls. Well, it's not actually all that great, but it sure as shit is interesting, even allowing your character to grow up over time as you play. Now, I couldn't, but I've seen other people say that they've spent dozens of hours playing it, as it is quite fleshed out for what it is. Plus, the idea of creating your own, or at least attempting to attach yourself to a fighting game character like that, in ways that, say, a super dedicated competitive player might do too without having to put in the effort to become one, is legit novel too. So novel even, that a certain major series attempted to do just that. Soulcal be the name, and insanely lavish character creators is its game. Also really solid weapon-based combat, easily making it one of my favorite fighting game series, but that ain't what we're here for. As you see, all games in the series, Soulcalibur 3 onward, would let you create your own cute girl or guy, having them partake in all manner of modes, online or offline. You start off by picking a class, i.e. a type of fighting style, complete with a base approximation of what could be considered a personality, from which you can customize their body, allowing you to tweak facial features, body dimensions, clothing, hair, and the color, width, length, girth, whatever, of all of these. Legit making most actual RPGs look bad with how deep this shit go. And that's just Soulcal 3 as well. I haven't played 4 or 5, but I do know that the recently released 6 is already setting the internet on fire with its crazy creations. Mainly Bowsets and Undertale skeletons, which is going to date this video horribly, but there you go. What really added a lot in 3 specifically though was the adventure mode called Chronicles of the Sword, which you could drag your creation into, taking them through this epic RPG story about knights, kingdoms, maps, and Lord of the Rings style fonts, and also some OCs hitting you with text boxes being all like, "A hobo blocks your path at the town gates. They wish to fight." And so you're all like, "On guard, bitch," only to end up fighting Sophithia, aka the Trash Queen. She is trash! Oh! But yeah, it's sort of like a strategy game, RTS civilization, tower defense thing, or whatever the fuck that Fort Condor shit in Final Fantasy VII was trying to be, where you tell your dudes to go to a place, and then they fight other dudes to conquer said place, or to defend it if it's yours. But of course, the actual encounters will use the actual fighting engine, thus making for a very good. Plus, because this mode can take ages if you wanted to, you'll most likely grow attached to your hellspawn, even more so when you take them out into the other modes afterwards, to wholesomely kick ass together. Not to mention doing that online in the later games where things will get proper personal. It's actually pretty fucking neat. Obviously, there's things I won't be able to cover because I won't have any experiences with them. Street Combat Injustice Instinct or Bloody Vania Toshinden may all have great single-player shit, but I wouldn't know. And I've also never played the legendary Subspace Emissary from Brawl, though what I did do was spend weeks upon weeks upon weeks trying to complete Melee. Doing all of those platforming shits, unlocking the trophy figurine thingies, making my way down that list with all of the stuff on it. Shit was, quite frankly, fucking amazing. Yet many of the games featured on here fucking wish that they could have anywhere near that same amount of content. And hey, I do actually have some proper non-AI experiences with this bitch too, as I would play the game loads with my cousins during summer. I think our parents wanted all of us to go outside, but my older cousin would always bring a GameCube along, so we'd stay firmly in front of telly. The reason that I bring this up anyway isn't because I think that you give a shit, but mainly as a way to make a cheeky segue to a certain series that I would also frequently play with friends, while also offering an immense wealth of super solid single-player garbage just as well. That, of course, being Dragon Ball Z fighting games. There is far too much to be said here, to the point that I would like to one day dedicate a retrospective to DBZ fighters in general, as, to me, there isn't a single Fightman series more experimental, interesting, and all-out bonkers than the Dragon Ball Z ones. From the handheld fusion alternate universe MMO fanfiction Thunderfucks, to the tug-of-war-based big field blowbangs, pretty much inventing their very own genre, the Dragon Ball license gave way to some shit. Like, literally, this game sucks. Epic key beams distilled down to lemons, animations that look like early South Park, and graphics that even for their time were very much on the dungy end of the spectrum. I think it's fair to say that this game, the other 90s 3D effort, and the admittedly great NES games weren't quite capable of capturing the show. Hence why developer Tosei of World of Final Fantasy and RE Survivor fame pretty much reinvented the wheel on what a fighter could be by making what would be a Dragon Ball Z simulator first and foremost. Boasting large looping maps that would never end, a very simple system that saw you mashing buttons with timing, pairing them with directions to cannonball motherfuckers all over the place, the ability to switch between guys having the AI guy while you guy on your own, and this bar, representing the tug-of-war, which would trigger a cutscene attack mimicking a moment from the show whenever the bar would be tugged to either side. Mimicking the show also being what it did on the story front, going all the way from Raditz to Kit Buu fighting every major and slightly less major fight along the way. It is a very simple game, not even exactly a fighter by traditional standards, but man, is it a fucking rush to play. Especially when you're little, being able to reenact the shit you saw on TV with graphics simple enough to allow your imagination to fill in the rest made Legend one of the hypest action games what the PS1 had to offer. And so, while Bandai would switch out Tosei in favor of Dimps, aka the Sonic Advance on 4 people, the vision would remain the same, straying ever further and further from tradition, all in the name of bringing to life Dragon Ball Z.
You want some of this? Well, come and get it! But I warn you, attacking something so small and fast won't be easy.
Attacking? You've got to be kidding! No arms, no legs. I'm not going to attack you. I'm going to eat you.
You guys, is Akira Toriyama doing okay? Does he need help? I guess maybe Dems figured that they would reel it back a tad. Like, yeah, Legend had like billions of characters to play as, but all of them played the same. And perhaps it was also a bit too simple and lacking in... So, that would be exactly what they would add.
You're a turn!
The first Budokai would be more of a fighter, with the two dudes on opposite sides and the health bars, as it would be the story mode with its in-engine retelling of the show that would grab people's attention. Because I mean, look at this shit. It's adorable. You got these Wii assets and animations and areas and shit made for a single frame, like Goku was in the hospital for like a day, all fully animated instead of it being a passionless off-screen mention, and they even made a model of Namek Dad just for this one shot. Not to mention them going through the effort of rendering all of Bulma's fashion. Best game, 10 out of 10. Plus, it's animated better than the anime. For the most part, though Still, Budokai is actually a great starter fighter, as it operates under the same basic that most fighters do, i.e. one kick button, one punch button, one guard button, and one special button, which in this case is a key button from which directions and combos will ensue. Only you start off with literally 2 combos and unlock all of the others as the in-game show progresses, giving you quick descriptions before and after each fight, giving you a shot at trying shit out bit by bit individually, ensuring that you'd actually be decently familiar with how to play the game by the end of the story mode, leaving you to duke it out against your friends or the AI in all of the various modes. The only thing that I think I could have done without is the Goku heavy focus though. I mean, you see Vegeta walking on the scene like, yo! Only for shit to cut to black, relegating all of his fights to cutscenes. It could have done a better job at teaching you the various characters, is what I'm saying, but more on that in the later games, I'm sure. What Budokai does, in any case, is to essentially combine elements of all of the previously mentioned games to create the perfect weird fighter. It has the cutscene triggering contextual garbo of Evil Zone with the added big maps and environmental destruction of DBZ Legend. It also has the simplistic babiness of Sonic the Fighters, the RPG elements and customizations of Ehrgeiz and Soulcal, and the cutscene heavy feature-length structure of the Strega, all combining into one big bloated game that is the rough equivalent of smashing your action figures together. Oh, and I guess it also uses all of these influences to create the one true mechanic, capsules. Essentially, turning regular fighting game moves into items that'll have a value attached to them, hence why energy bar. Which is a really fucking intuitive way to introduce the concept of combos to a newcomer. Pretty much keeping things simple but making it feel deep by being a tad RPG-like, letting you also trade capsules between characters and customizing them to a degree, giving the game a lot more longevity past its story mode through how cleverly it sets you up for experimentation. Not to mention that without the show as always a bit of a social experience due to it being discussed on many a school playground, I'd wager that this game did quite a fair bit to get kids interested in fighters, basically doing what Evil Zone set out to do, just more better. Giving you a taste of what being good at fighters feels like, something to strive for I guess, all per result of it wanting to emulate the show. And so, video game was big success. Meaning that for Budokai 2, they would ditch all of that, thus pissing off everyone. Meaning that for Budokai 3, they would bring all of it back and then some. Adding billions of characters, alternate scenarios, a story mode with a world map, and all kinds of crazy RPG tier shit as it expanded upon the capsule system like a motherfucker, even adding defensive moves and everything. Shit looked dynamic as fuck, and it was great. And it would also keep being great, with all subsequent games just adding a bit more every time. Changing camera angles and trying out all manner of story modes, right up until they wouldn't have anything left to add, upon which things stopped being great, until they reinvented the wheel again by turning things into an MMORPG MOBA cutscene fighter hybrid with its own original story that would actually be really cool and neat and fun and still very shallow, but literally who gives a shit at this point? Well, Arxis did, actually, as they would create a Dragon Ball game that would somehow be a rock-solid fighter, whilst also keeping around that lavish single-player legacy for good measure. Granted, I haven't played it, so I can't say if it's better than Evolution just quite yet, but it sure as shit looks like it would be. Which is cool, honestly, as most newer fighting games seem content with just dunking an online mode with a season pass onto shelves giving you fuck all to do if shit ain't for you. Sure, Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, and Marvel vs. Capcom would all have hilariously bat-entertaining cutscene compilations a la the Strega, but when that shit's only about 2 hours long, you ain't gonna be left with much else if this is your first time playing, seeing as these modes don't teach you shit, and online is usually a terrible environment to learn how to play. Character unlocks, fun side modes, big stories, minigames, in-game goodies, and whatever the fuck Shaolin was going for are all things that can artificially patch it out, forcing you to play more, thus getting adequate enough to brave competitive spaces, and or just giving you an actual fucking game to play, and not the $60 early access privilege to buy the fucking season pass.
But out of the mold of Dragon Ball Z and Naruto fighters would come a subgenre called arena fighters that would save the solo party game.
Dissidia, Eyes of Heaven, Gunslinger Stratos, Pokken, and that one Gunpla game are all titles that seem to care little about being traditional fighters and, in loads of cases, aren't afraid to put the story mode front and center. Having gameplay that's more of a hybrid of beat-em-ups, Evil Zone-esque cutscene triggering, and, I guess, MOBAs, sort of, being that a lot of the moves are linked to timed meters with cooldowns and other bar-based contextual bollocks. It's a really neat-ass, new-ass thing that's currently dominating but in Japanese arcades, thus also perhaps actually having legit competitive grounds all on their own. But while I'd love to talk about Dissidia someday, and I'm always down to JoJo, and also have a vague interest in Anarchy Reigns, I think that all of that is best kept for their own respective videos. I just wanted to bring it up all happy in style to show how many of these games mentioned here did eventually spawn their own thing, directly or indirectly. Like crazy diamonds shining on in the wind. Also, Harada, bring back ball mode, you fuck!